Hello ARMY! Welcome back to our channel. Are you ready for the hottest tea from BTS's reunion interview at GQ magazine? Because today we're going to discuss something that absolutely caused a stir throughout the entire fandom. For the first time in 4 years, BTS sat down together for a group interview, and guys, Suga dropped a bomb about Jimin that nobody expected. Seriously, when he said this, you could see the shock on the other members' faces, and ARMY worldwide literally lost their minds. So make sure you watch until the end, because we're going to break down everything Suga revealed, the context behind it, and why this revelation is so significant. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss other content. Let's get into this. Okay guys, before we jump into what Suga actually said, we need to set the scene first. This is BTS's first group interview since they announced their hiatus in 2022. 4 years, guys. 4 years they haven't sat together for an official interview like this. The tension and excitement in the room must have been extraordinary. The interviewer from GQ said that the energy when all 7 members gathered was something difficult to explain in words. There was a mixture of nostalgia, excitement, nervousness, and an overwhelming sense of gratitude to be together again. The interview lasted almost 3 hours, although what was published in the magazine was, of course, only excerpts. But according to people who were in the room, the atmosphere was very relaxed yet also deeply emotional. The members were throwing jokes at each other, there was laughter, but there were also moments of profound sincerity and vulnerability. And one of the most memorable moments from the entire session was when the conversation turned to the topic of individual growth during the hiatus, and specifically, when Suga started talking about Jimin. So here's what happened. The interviewer asked each member about who changed the most during the 4-year hiatus. Several members mentioned different people. Some said Jungkook because of his obvious physical transformation. Some mentioned RM because of his artistic evolution. But when the question reached Suga, everyone expected he would give a typical diplomatic answer, or maybe deflect with a joke. That's usually Suga's style in group interviews, right? He tends to be more reserved, letting other members dominate the conversation. But this time, Suga leaned forward, looked directly at the interviewer, and with a completely serious expression he said, and this is a direct quote, guys, "Jimin scared me the most during our time apart." Dead silence. You could literally hear a pin drop in that room. The other members turned to look at Suga with surprised expressions. Jimin himself looked absolutely shocked, his eyes wide, clearly not expecting Suga to say anything like that. The interviewer, equally surprised, asked Suga to elaborate, and what Suga said next is what really got everyone shook. Suga explained, and guys' voice was so sincere and almost vulnerable, something we rarely see from him publicly, that during the hiatus, especially during periods when Jimin was going through military service and working on his solo projects, Suga was genuinely worried about him. Not worried in the sense of thinking Jimin couldn't handle it, but worried because he knew how hard Jimin pushes himself, how much pressure Jimin puts on his own shoulders, how Jimin tends to internalize struggles without reaching out for help. Suga said, and this is another direct quote that made everyone emotional, "Jimin has always been the strongest person I know, but not in the way people think. His strength comes from his willingness to be vulnerable, to feel everything deeply, to care so much even when it hurts. But that kind of strength, it's also dangerous. Because when you feel everything, the pain is sharper, the loneliness is deeper, the pressure is heavier." And I knew, during those years apart, Jimin was facing all of that alone. Guys, the emotion in the room at that point was palpable. Several members were visibly moved. Jungkook was looking down, clearly affected. RM was nodding slowly, like he completely understood what Suga meant. Jin had his hand over his mouth. And Jimin, oh guys, Jimin's eyes were glistening with unshed tears. He was clearly trying to maintain his composure, but you could see how deeply Suga's words affected him. But Suga wasn't done. He continued, and this is where it gets even more intense. He said that there were several times during the hiatus when he received late-night calls or messages from Jimin, not asking for help explicitly, because Jimin never directly asks for help, but Suga could read between the lines. He could tell from the tone of Jimin's voice, from the words that Jimin chose, from the things that Jimin didn't say, that Jimin was struggling. And every single time, Suga dropped whatever he was doing to be there for Jimin. Suga revealed, and this is the part that really made ARMY lose their minds, that there was one particular night. He didn't specify exactly when to protect Jimin's privacy, but there was one night when Jimin called him at 3 in the morning. Jimin didn't say anything was wrong, just said he couldn't sleep and wanted to talk. They ended up being on the phone for almost 5 hours, just talking about everything and nothing. Suga said by the end of that call, he knew Jimin was in a darker place than he was letting on. What Suga did next showed exactly the kind of friend he is. Although Jimin insisted he was fine, Suga didn't buy it. The next day, despite having a packed schedule and despite knowing Jimin might be upset with him for overreacting, Suga showed up at Jimin's place unannounced. He brought Jimin's favorite food, and he simply stayed with him for the entire day. Not much talking, not trying to fix anything, just being present. Suga said that was one of the most important days for him personally, because it made him realize how much Jimin meant to him, how much he valued their friendship, and how he never wanted to take it for granted. But here's where Suga's revelation took another turn that nobody expected. He said, with a voice slightly shaking with emotion, "But what scared me the most wasn't that Jimin was struggling. What scared me was when I finally saw him again in person for this reunion, I realized how strong he had become despite all that struggle. Or maybe because of it. Jimin didn't just survive those 4 years, he transformed. He found parts of himself I don't think even he knew existed. And while I'm incredibly proud of him, there's also this fear of wondering if he still needs us, still needs me, the way he used to. Because the Jimin sitting here today, he's someone who learned to stand completely on his own." Guys, this revelation had so many layers. First, it showed vulnerability from Suga that we rarely see. For him to admit fear, to admit worry, to admit uncertainty about his place in Jimin's life, that's huge. Second, it showed the depth of their friendship that goes beyond what we normally see. Third, it revealed struggles that Jimin was going through privately that most people weren't aware of. And fourth, it touched on something universal about the fear of losing connection with someone you care about when they grow and change. At this point in the interview, Jimin finally spoke up. And guys, what he said was equally emotional and beautiful. With tears now openly flowing, Jimin turned to Suga and said, "Hyung, you didn't just show up that one day. You showed up every day, in every way that mattered. Every message you sent checking if I ate. Every random article you forwarded that you thought I'd find interesting. Every time you asked about my music even when you were busy with your own. Every time you told me to rest when I was pushing too hard. You think I became strong on my own? I became strong because I had you. Because I knew no matter what, there was someone who saw through all my pretending, who knew when I was struggling even when I said I was fine, who cared enough to show up even when I pushed everyone away." The emotion in the room at this point was overwhelming. The other members were openly crying. Jhope was wiping his eyes. B had his arm around Jungkook, who was also emotional. RM was just staring at Jimin, and Suga with this expression of deep affection and pride. Jin was nodding, clearly moved by the honesty of the conversation. Jimin continued, "And this part is equally important, and you're wrong about one thing. You think I don't need you anymore because I learned to stand on my own? Hyung, I need you more than ever. Not because I can't stand alone, but because standing alone made me realize how much better it is to stand together. I don't need you to save me anymore, but I need you to stand beside me. There's a difference. And that difference, that's what makes our friendship stronger now than it ever was before." Guys, can we just take a moment to appreciate the profundity of this exchange? This is friendship at its most beautiful and authentic level. This isn't codependency. This isn't one person leaning completely on another. This is two individuals who are complete on their own, choosing to be there for each other, choosing to be vulnerable with each other, choosing to maintain connection despite growth and change. Suga responded to Jimin, and you could see he was struggling to maintain his composure. He simply said, "That's all I needed to hear." And then, in a move that shocked everyone because Suga is typically not physically affectionate in public settings, he reached over and put his hand on Jimin's shoulder and squeezed it. Jimin immediately covered Suga's hand with his own. And that simple gesture, that moment of physical connection, said everything that words couldn't express. The interviewer, who was clearly moved by this entire exchange, asked if this dynamic, this deep understanding between Jimin and Suga, contributed to their excitement about reuniting as a group. RM jumped in at this point, and his perspective added another layer to understanding the significance of Suga's revelation. RM said that watching Jimin and Suga's friendship evolve over the years has been one of the most beautiful aspects of being in BTS. He said they represent what true friendship looks like, friendship that's not afraid of depth, that doesn't shy away from difficult conversations, that's willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of being honest. RM also revealed something interesting. He said during the hiatus, he was actually worried about how the reunion would go, whether their chemistry was still there after such a long separation, whether they had grown too much in different directions to find common ground again. But watching Jimin and Suga in this moment, seeing the depth of their connection unchanged despite everything, it reassured him that BTS's bond was unbreakable. If Jimin and Suga, who are such opposites in personality, could maintain and even deepen their connection, then there was hope for all of them. J-Hope added his perspective too, saying that Jimin and Suga's friendship taught him a valuable lesson about not assuming you know what someone needs. He said it's easy to project our own needs onto others, to assume that because we would want certain things in difficult times, everyone else would want the same. But watching how Suga handled Jimin's struggles, how he read subtle cues and responded accordingly, how he knew when to push and when to pull back, that taught J-Hope about the importance of truly listening and observing rather than just reacting. Jin, in typical Jin fashion, lightened the mood slightly by joking that he's jealous of Jimin and Suga's dramatic friendship moment and demanding an equal emotional declaration from the other members. Everyone laughed, and it provided necessary relief from the intensity of the previous conversation. But even in the joke, there was truth. All members clearly have deep respect and admiration for the bond that Jimin and Suga share. V added something touching too. He said watching Jimin struggle and grow during the hiatus was difficult for all of them, but he always felt reassured knowing Suga was keeping an eye on Jimin. He said Suga has this quiet way of taking care of people that others might not notice, but it's incredibly effective. And knowing Jimin had that support, even when V himself couldn't be there, made the separation easier to bear. Jungkook, who's the youngest and has looked up to both Jimin and Suga in different ways throughout his life, said that their friendship gave him a model for what he wants in his own relationships. Not dramatic declarations or constant interaction, but steady, reliable, deep understanding. He said watching them, he learned that real friendship isn't about being together all the time. It's about being there for each other when it matters most. After this emotional segment, the interview continued with lighter topics, but the damage was done in the best possible way. Suga's revelation about Jimin, Jimin's response, and the subsequent discussion had created one of the most memorable moments in BTS interview history. It gave fans a glimpse into the depth of relationships within the group that we don't often get to see. It showed vulnerability, authenticity, and genuine love that these 7 men have for each other. Now let's talk about ARMY's reaction because guys, social media absolutely exploded after this interview dropped. Twitter trends were dominated by Jimin and Suga-related hashtags. Minsug, Yoonmin, and various other tags were trending worldwide for days. Fans were creating threads analyzing every word of the exchange, making edits of emotional moments, writing appreciation posts for both Jimin and Suga. Many fans shared how this honest conversation about mental health, about struggling privately, about the importance of checking in on friends, resonated deeply with their own experiences. There were particularly touching responses from fans who related to Jimin's tendency to internalize struggles. Many shared their own stories of pretending to be fine while struggling internally, and how Suga's ability to see through that pretense gave them hope that maybe their own friends could see through theirs too. Others related to Suga's fear of becoming less needed as someone grows stronger, and the discussion about healthy friendship dynamics that resulted resonated with many. Mental health professionals and therapists actually commented on this interview, praising the openness with which Jimin and Suga discussed struggles and support. Several noted that the conversation they had represents a healthy model for friendship, emphasizing the importance of being present without trying to fix everything, of respecting someone's strength while still offering support, of maintaining connection through growth and change. Other celebrities and public figures also commented on the interview, many expressing admiration for the vulnerability that BTS members, particularly Suga and Jimin, showed. In an industry that often values maintaining a perfect image, this level of honesty was refreshing and inspiring for many. What's also significant about Suga's revelation is the timing. This is their first group interview after 4 years, the first time they're publicly coming together again. For Suga to choose this moment to be so vulnerable, to share something so personal about his relationship with Jimin, it sets the tone for a new chapter of BTS. It signals that they're not just coming back as entertainers or performers, they're coming back as 7 individuals who have grown, who have depth, who have stories to tell, and who aren't afraid to be real with their audience. It also elevates the conversation about friendship in general, particularly masculine friendship. There's often stigma around men being emotionally open with each other, expressing care and concern, admitting fear or vulnerability. Suga and Jimin's exchange challenges that stigma beautifully. They show that real strength is in being able to be vulnerable, real friendship includes emotional honesty, and there's nothing weak about caring deeply for someone. Looking at the bigger picture, this revelation from Suga about Jimin also gives context to their creative work during the hiatus. Jimin's solo album, with its themes of struggle, transformation, and finding strength, makes more sense knowing what he was going through privately. Suga's production work, often dealing with themes of mental health and human connection, was clearly influenced by his own experiences supporting Jimin and others. Moving forward, it will be interesting to see how this newfound openness translates into BTS's comeback work. Will we see more vulnerability in their music, more honest conversations in their content, more depth in their artistic expression? If this interview is any indication, the answer is probably yes. And honestly, that's exciting. BTS has always been a group that pushes boundaries, that isn't afraid to tackle difficult topics. This seems like a natural evolution of that trajectory. So guys, let's recap what makes Suga's revelation so significant. First, it showed the depth of the bond between him and Jimin that goes beyond what we typically see. Second, it revealed private struggles that Jimin faced, humanizing him beyond his idol persona. Third, it demonstrated what real friendship looks like, a model that many people found inspiring. Fourth, it challenged stigmas around masculine emotional expression. Fifth, it set the tone for an honest, vulnerable approach to BTS's new chapter. And sixth, it created one of the most memorable moments in BTS interview history that will be discussed and analyzed for years to come. What makes all of this even more beautiful is the authenticity of it. This wasn't scripted for publicity, wasn't planned for creating a viral moment. This was genuine emotion, genuine vulnerability, genuine love between friends. And that authenticity is what resonates so deeply with people. In a world that often feels fake or superficial, moments of real human connection like this are precious. Okay, Army, that's a comprehensive breakdown of Suga's shocking revelation about Jimin in the first BTS group interview after 4 years. What was your reaction when you first read or heard about this? Did it change your perspective on their friendship? What part of the exchange between Jimin and Suga affected you the most? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation about this because clearly, it touched something deep in many of us. Don't forget to like this video if you found this analysis valuable, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more BTS content and analysis, and share this with fellow ARMY who might have missed these details. Hit that notification bell so you're always first to know when we upload new content. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's okay to struggle, it's okay to need people, and it's okay to be vulnerable. That's what Jimin and Suga taught us through their beautiful friendship. Take care of yourselves and each other. See you in the next video, guys. Bye.